This is a Geek Leader podcast, and I'm your host, John Rauda. This show is all about helping us grow as leaders, become better technologists, and improve our lives both at work and at home. I hope you enjoy the show and learn a lot. Hello, world, and welcome to episode 252 of Geek Leader Podcast. I'm your host, John Rauda. Today's sponsor is A2 Hosting. I've been using A2 Hosting solid state hosting solutions for our website at geekleader.com for many years now, and absolutely love their support, their service, and all the features that you get. You get access to cPanel. You get all of the things that you can imagine for a great WordPress experience, including their A2 optimized WordPress, which does extra security checks, extra lockdown. You can lock down your editor file so you can't edit anything inside there. You get alerts whenever there are file changes that are done. You can also do automatic updates, backups, and more with A2 Hosting. So highly recommend it. Go to geekleader.com/A2 to get more information and to sign up for their solid state turbocharged speed hosting today. Again, that's at geekleader.com/A2. All right, Geek Leaders, today on the show, I'm honored to have Josh Saterman with me. He is the founder of Saterman Connect and the author of a book called Arrive, Drive, Thrive. And he's going to talk to us all about leadership, all about listening, all about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And hopefully he'll help us all leave this conversation being a little bit better leader than we were coming into it. With all that being said, Josh, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
If you don't mind, just tell the audience a little bit about how you got to where you are in your career and what is it that you're doing over at Saterman Connect?
So Saterman Connect is a HR consulting firm that focuses on people development and DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. We pride ourselves on, or say very affectionately, that the best leaders are inclusive leaders. Excuse me, but we say the best leaders are inclusive leaders because true leaders understand the value of motivating their team, of being invested in their direct reports, colleagues, peers, and understand that relationship between how their organization works and how to drive results. My background is I come from the industry of retail. For many years, I led teams and was influencing teams and really loved the idea of lifting people up and letting people shine and finding ways to amplify their voices. And so after many years of being an executive and doing work in that space, I decided to take this whole idea of empowering your leadership into Saterman Connect and do it for other industries, other organizations, other peers and colleagues, again, in the spirit of lifting up people and getting better every day.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that, a lot of times when you get promoted into a management type role, you're focusing more on the job than the people. And at least I was when I got in there, I was focusing on making sure I did a good job, making sure my reports are updated, making sure all the status reports are where they need to be. And I kind of forgot about sometimes that my job as a manager or as a leader is to grow the people that report to me and to figure out how to make them as successful as they can be, how to make them happy at work, because a happier employee is a successful employee. And, it's really good to have some HR groups, focus heavily on that, and other groups don't. They focus on making sure you have your benefits, and that's about as far as they go. Yeah. So it all depends on where you work. And I'm blessed to work at a place where we do focus on that. So that's great. But how have you seen this trend of being more focused on the people increase over the past few years?
Great question. Oftentimes I talk about this idea of fulfillment versus engagement. Engagement being a lens or a marker that the company gauges, the employees engages the organization. Fulfillment is how the organization really satisfies an employee. I will sometimes call them colleagues because I think it's a much more inclusive term. But for this case, I'll say employees. How are the employees feeling valued? How are they feeling part of the organization? Are the values and motivating factors of an employee being met by the organization? When we think about the time and investment we spend in our workplace as part of a workforce each and every day, it's a huge chunk of our time. So as a human, you want to make sure that you're putting your time with an organization that speaks to your values, that helps you accomplish your goals, that recognizes your full, authentic, whole self. And so that's something that's shifting. And I think it's shifting because no longer is the quintessential workday, especially you're working in corporate America, a 9 to 5. People are working more jobs, they have side gigs, they're working to do lots of things to improve, work on, and be a part of their life. And so it's really essential that an organization think this way. Think about what does it mean for an employee, for a colleague to feel fulfilled and connected to the organization that they're serving.
Yeah, I know for me, like I mean, when it first struck home to me was, I guess when I first had kids, and I was working probably longer than I should. And I realized how much time I'm spending. I'm spending more time with the people that report to me than I am with my own kids right now,
That's right. That's
and,
right.
and I need to make sure that if I'm doing that, I need to invest in the same way, but also I need to maybe back off a little bit, have a little bit more work-life balance, and understand the fact that the people that report to me have kids too, and they have families, and they have husbands and wives and whatever else, and we need to make sure that they're able to spend adequate time there. And I don't need to be pinging them at 7 o'clock in the evening, asking them some stupid question that can wait till the next day. I need to be a better steward of their time as well. And that's where it kind of all started for me, of focusing more on the people than the job.
Yeah, I always give some recommendations to whether you're an existing manager and have doing this for years, or whether you're a new manager or a new people leader. I like to ask 3 questions of the folks I'm working with. Again, whether it's a boss, whether it's a peer, or whether it's a direct report or junior colleague, is I like to ask, what motivates you? It's a very powerful question. It's a very personal question, but what motivates you? What does success look like? And how do you like to be recognized? And I learned these questions from talking with other leaders in HR, other mentors and sponsors throughout my career. And the value to it is you start to understand what makes a person tick. What is important to somebody? And whether you're a colleague, a peer, or a manager, a boss, a leader, this is a great way to build a connection. And through building those connections, you can be a stronger leader because you are working with parents, or you're working with someone that's taking care of elder parents, or you don't know the dynamic that's happening in the home or workplace. And so this gives you an ability to have a little bit more connection to the folks that you're serving alongside.
Yeah. There's one thing that we talk about on our team, because one of the groups that I manage is a help desk group, in our technology group. And we talk about the fact that you never know what someone's day is like. You don't know what their morning was like when they came in. So yeah, they get on their computer, they can't log in, their passwords, whatever, and they're frustrated. Yeah. But could they be like really frustrated because they've got something serious illness going on at home that they don't want to share, or that there's something else that maybe there's a problem in their marriage, there's something going on. And we need to treat them with the utmost respect and realize that this little problem that they're having today could be, just the tip of the iceberg of something that's really big underneath that's causing them this extra frustration, and treat them with the utmost respect so that we can help them out in a bigger picture, and not, be kind, even though that they're frustrated, and understand that we don't know what's going on that day. And I think that's one of the, I don't know, one of the things that I pride myself on when it comes to working with people is to think about those kind of things and try to focus on that when you're leading a group of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's a powerful topic, John, because for us, what we start to talk about is sometimes there's still some folks that are living in that question mark of why. Why is it important to bring your full authentic self to work? Or why is it important that we know if someone's having an issue at home, whatever the issue or topic is, right? And the reason for that is because it actually is not just good for the human or the people development, it's good for business.
Yes.
You want folks to come and bring their full authentic selves because you want the diverse thinking. You want their innovation. You want them to be creative at problem solving, right? Our world today is complex, and that requires not a singular answer, but a multi-pronged answer. And so that requires collaboration. It requires clear communication, great listening skills. And so it's for this reason that we want folks to feel comfortable and at peace in the workplace, because we know when our minds are settled, we think better. We innovate better, we communicate more clearly, we delegate with more clarity around what the action or goal that we need from our teams, from our people, from ourselves are really around. And so when you start to take a step back, as much as we talk about diversity and inclusion for all the dimensions of diversity around race, gender, orientation, identification, there's also dimensions of diversity around just thinking, background, lived experience. And that comes into the workplace in a beautiful way to be a reflection of the marketplace that we're serving. And that's why we need our full authentic selves in the workplace.
That's a great answer. And I couldn't agree with you more. I remember at a previous job, I was managing a team of developers and we were building, web applications and websites and things like that. And as the team grew, just through attrition, people leaving, new people coming in, not intentionally, but we developed a very diverse team.
Yeah.
Of diverse ages, backgrounds. We had some people that were right out of college in their 20s, people from with their green cards from Hispanic descents, people from African American backgrounds. We had a older lady that was in her 60s on the team. We had a very diverse group, and we found out that we were able to build really great apps because we had different perspectives. And,
That's right.
One group of people may use a product a certain way, but a different group sees it a different way. There's words that make perfect sense here. We thought were being funny and kind of cute with some of these younger terms that we would throw out there, but the older generation didn't like some of it, So how can we do both? How can we hit both groups? And, there's so much benefits of having just a diverse group. And I think that's, businesses are seeing that these days.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well said. And a great example of where lots of different backgrounds and lived experiences are able to create a better, more strong product because you want to be open to all people so that all people can feel like they can be a part of whatever journey you're offering the marketplace.
Yeah.
Love.
So one of the things that I've noticed I've had lots of people on, we talked about diversity, equity, and inclusion before, but a lot of companies drop that B, that belonging. And I was curious of why that's what that means and why that should not be dropped.
Yeah, it's a great question. And thank you for that. We feel very strong about the belonging because the belonging speaks to culture. It's how you foster that feeling of belonging, that feeling of every day coming to work and not just wanting to be at work, but feeling like you're wanted at work. Right. And so diversity, we know is a fact. I say this all the time. You can have two cisgender, meaning born of the sex that you identify with, binary, meaning you feel you're a male or a man or a woman or a female, right? You can have two white, straight men in the workplace. They are diverse. There is a seat at the table for all people to be part of this journey. And I'm very adamant about that because we all have to be part of this idea. And inclusion is a choice. I'm choosing to be inclusive to all people because it's important, right? Because we have a lot of conversations to have, and it's more powerful when we can all do it together. That's a choice. Where you get into equity is fairness, different than equality, which is sameness, right? We're looking to have equity within workplaces, right? To understand the dynamics of individuals and then meet those needs. And the belonging is the D, E, and I as it comes together each and every day. Belonging is not a destination. Belonging is a journey. Culture evolves. If you have somebody that leaves an organization and somebody that comes into an organization, it's an opportunity for belonging. The culture evolves, the company evolves, and so too does the concept or the feeling of belonging and how employees, clients, marketplace, workforce, and workplace come together.
Yeah, I love the way you put that because it all just boils down to having a good culture. And how do you get that good culture? And how do you make people feel like they belong somewhere and they're not just picking up a paycheck and feeling like, God, I can't wait to get home, get out of this job, and make it feel like they're impactful and you're doing something. I know, and I've never really thought about it this way. The way you're describing this makes me think of a story that I was trying, Simon Sinek, you've heard of Simon Sinek, start with the why guy. Everybody loves Simon Sinek. When I first saw his TED Talk, probably 10 years ago, maybe more than that, definitely more than that. I wanted to figure out how I can incorporate that into our requirements gathering and figuring out how we're going to build something on a web app we were building back on that team. And what I said is the next time we get some basic requirement in, I want to dig in and figure out what the why is behind it and present that as a story for my team to motivate them. It was all about motivation, not really about culture or belonging, but about motivation. And the thing was is the group, we built a mobile application this time for a team that was doing support tickets. And they were driving trucks out to people's houses and things like that and fixing problems. And what we discovered is that they wanted to be able to close the tickets without having to open them, because the requirement originally was that they open it, they put in their little notes, and they close the tickets.
Sure.
And I didn't know why. I was like, why would you want to do that? You have to put in the notes. And I said, well, our workflow is that we actually put in the notes and then we leave just in case something goes on. We can go back to the house really quickly and make sure it's still working or whatever. And we close them all at the end of the shift. I said, oh,
Sure.
so really we could just put a batch close and close them all at once and not have to close each one of them without opening it. He's like, oh, that'd be perfect. So then I went to my team and I told them, hey, we want to do a batch close, then close all the tickets. They're like, why would they want to do that? And I said, because they have families at home that they want to go spend time with. And if they can close these tickets 10 minutes faster, they can get home to their families 10 minutes sooner every single day. And when you've got 150 people that work at this company that go and deliver trucks, you're talking about real time that they can spend kicking a soccer ball with their kids or getting to dinner a little bit early with their spouse and spending time with their family instead of sitting there and opening tickets, scrolling down, typing in some notes and closing them. And that's why we want to put this button in. And, that's all about culture, really. That's about developing that culture. And I think, when you say it that way, it means a lot more than just saying, we just want to speed up the closing of tickets.
Totally. And I love that you threw in Simon Sinek in that sense of the why game. And what you just talked about is the why before the what. So being able to add context and make folks partners, regardless of level or hierarchy, right? Just make them partners because it is about this feeling of belonging, this feeling of being a part of the journey. And so I love the example you just shared.
So one of the things I've heard you talk about before is listening with your eyes. And one of the ways I found to help people feel like they belong is to actually make sure that they're heard and make sure that you listen to them. What are some other ways that we can help be a better listener as a leader?
I can be a talker. I like to talk. I like to engage and conversate, and I like that. As a coach, my number one objective is to help the client create presence, mindfulness, and awareness. So I'll share two examples. The first example is I was speaking with a client, again in Zoom, right? We're in this hybrid workplace, regardless of the COVID pandemic, right? Maybe we're in different locations. We have to use a virtual platform, and the integrity of the coaching should not be compromised from that. And I was watching this individual, and I can tell from the eyes, can you tell from the answers, there was a bit of nerves. And so I asked, I couldn't see the person's hands. The person was sitting with their hands sort of below the view of the video. I sort of asked, I said, what's happening for you right now? Describe your body language. And this person said, well, I'm actually fidgeting with a pen is where we got to. Is this person said, I'm fidgeting with a pen. And I said, well, why? What about fidgeting is supporting, what's happening for you right now? And this person said, I'm actually a little nervous, just nervous with the topic we're having. And so when I'm nervous, I fidget with my pen. Listening with your eyes means that for the rest of those sessions, that 6 months, 9 months that we were coaching together, if we were hitting a subject that was a little uncomfortable, I asked the question, I'm just curious, are you fidgeting with the pen? And what it reminded the client of is it was a safe space, right? It was, I'm not judging you. I want to make sure you're feeling comfortable. And how can I make this space feel comfortable for you? So you can share openly, so you can really tackle the tough, complex, fill in the blank conversations that are important to you. And that I'm listening to your body language. So even though I'm in a Zoom platform, I can be highly respectful of meeting you where you're at, right? The other example I'll give is a working mother, and I am highlighting these two examples on purpose because whether it's a man, identifies a man, or identifies a woman, you could fill in the blank on X person for either one. So even in the language I'm using, I'm being inclusive and intentional about it to create belonging, because that could have been a woman, it could have been younger, old, doesn't matter. Somebody, anybody might have something that they do when they're feeling a little nervous. And how do you create that safe space for them? Likewise, I was coaching and a woman was hiding in clothes. The only way I can describe it is she was literally like, there was clothes around her. And I asked this client, I said, can we take a thoughtful pause? What's happening today in your space? What's happening for you? Are you comfortable sharing where you're at in this moment? Right? Again, create awareness, presence, mindfulness. And her response was, I'm hiding from my kids, my husband, and my dogs. I am literally in the back of my walk-in closet, hiding in the clothes because I am so desperate to have this conversation today and just be able to connect with you and talk about what's happening in my workspace, let alone personal space. But in that moment, again, listening with my eyes, I wasn't just talking about or with the person. I was, again, talking about what's happening in the environment. This working mom was just trying to find an hour of quiet to explore something that was important to herself. How do we acknowledge that space? We had a building on that agenda. We had having a great conversation. And when she left, I say this all the time. I say, I'm noticing your shoulders have come down. How are you feeling right now? right? And just by being thoughtful with your eyes, watching what's happening around you, you can create a very powerful moment for connection, and that creates belonging. That's a great way for leaders to create belonging.
So would you recommend doing that, like when during a one-on-one, even if you're in person, asking like where you are today, like asking about that context about their, kind of what their mindset's in today, like, or just let it come naturally?
Typically the way that I start if I'm in person
Mhm.
is I have two questions I ask, more to the motivation, and that's separate questions for more introductions, or what I call pulse checks, every
Right.
6 months, every 3 months, right? In a touch base, I was a big fan. I still am a big fan. I still do this with my team, is I meet with my direct reports every week for an hour to just talk about what's happening for them. Where are you at? And typically, my first two questions are, share with me one thing that you really want to celebrate this week. You want to share it with me because it was amazing for you. It doesn't have to be work related, just has to be something that you really want to share, that you want to acknowledge. And then share one thing that's really giving you some frustration. Share something that's happening, one thing that you would like to get past and it's a roadblock and you're trying to work your way through it, right?
Mm.
And what happens in that space is you give people permission to just share what's on their mind. And it may not be work related, and that's okay. Because again, if you're bringing your full authentic self to work, then they may say, my kid is sick, home again, COVID outbreak, kids at home. It's very real right now,
Mhm.
right? And it's exhausting for working parents. And so you give the person the space to just share that, so that then you can solve for, well, you know what? Go home at 3 o'clock, log back in at 7, 8 o'clock when the kid goes to bed. Give yourself permission to shut down some of the meetings in the afternoon and right size that, or give yourself permission, right? How can I support you, or who on the team can support you in this moment, right? So I ask those two questions to get a status check, so I can understand how to support the organization, the individual, with more clarity.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And, you're right. It is real right now. I've got 3 kids, and if one kid in one of the classrooms somewhere gets COVID, then everybody shut down for a week. It's for real, and I think that's why it's really important right now to have these conversations to find out where people are at, because, especially when you talk about inclusion. And I think right now we focus on, at least I focus on trying to make sure everybody feels like they belong, like you're talking about belonging. But then you've got kind of a divided country right now. We've got a divided line when it comes to, should I wear a mask? Should I not wear a mask? Is the vaccine, get the vaccine, don't get the vaccine? And how do we make a space that's safe for everybody? And it's really challenging,
Yeah.
right now to kind of toe the line in the right way, and do the right things that makes you feel safe and safe for your family, but also make the other people feel like they're not being betrayed or abandoned or whatever. And I found that being really challenging right now as a leader.
Yeah, again, just going on the mask subject. I mean, again, I don't get into the politics often because I don't really
Mm.
care, Democrat, Republican, anything in between,
Right.
right? Leadership is about some really quintessential core critical skills and technical skills, that are required to be successful in the workplace. What I would offer is, we've lost as a country the concept of decorum and manners and having conversation. I
Yes.
don't have to agree with everybody. Agreement is not the goal. This is not a team sport, right? I'm a huge Miami Dolphins fan. For any of the Patriot Bills fans, Jet fans out there, I'm so sorry. I really am a good guy, I promise. But I'm a Dolphins fan, but that's sports, right? I think there are many people out there that still open doors for somebody at a store or a restaurant when somebody's standing behind them, or many folks that are at a four-way stop sign that will allow the other person to go before they cross the intersection. I think masks in this concept are not really about COVID per se. It's about this idea that we're in a very complex environment. We don't know somebody else's shoes. They could
Right.
have an elderly parent. They could be going through cancer. They could have a child that is not vaccinated yet, that is prone, has autoimmune disease. And excuse my language, but it scares the shit out of people. We don't know their story.
Right.
So just like you pause at the four-way stop sign, or just like you open the door, there's a certain degree of manners that comes with where we are today in our world. Vaccine, not vaccine, we can't get into that in today's conversation. But when it comes to health and safety and keeping folks safe, Even if the max, helps 5%, why not take that chance and be able to do the right thing for somebody else? It's one of the reasons why we are passionate as an organization of hearing people's stories. I share often. We learn about ourselves through other people's stories. And I learned that through several folks, being out in the world in the community and hearing folks talk about that. And I give those folks a lot of credit because it opened my eyes to the idea that we do learn about ourselves by listening to what other people are going through and using that as a reflection. Every one of us knows somebody impacted by a cancer, a heart disease, a child that needed a little extra attention. And so if we lead with a little bit more emotional intelligence, if we lean in with a little bit more empathy, it softens the boiling point. We're just at this unbelievable boiling point as a country. And how do we find our ways to just take a breath and then have a great conversation? So we learn about people, we learn about what's happening in their space. And the last thing I'll say about this is there's a phenomenal, I'm going to give a credit to Heineken. They just launched this incredible commercial, 5 different couples who on opposite sides of a topic, climate change, feminism, fill in the blank. And they come together in the spirit over a Heineken and they go through this exercise. Check it out on YouTube. I highly recommend it. It's powerful and it's beautiful because it's really about this idea of if we could just get to a place where we take a breath and have a conversation, we will learn more about people and about ourselves and be able to get a little less divisive.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to link that up in the show notes so we can, let the audience listen to it and watch it as well. But I love that answer. I think that you're right. It's about respect. I live in South Carolina and, down here in the South, one thing I notice is whenever I drive to visit family and we go up north, people don't, they're not maybe as friendly when it comes to the way that they drive. Maybe they're not letting people go, not letting people emerge in as quick, the way that they do in South Carolina. However, I don't want to harp on this too much, but you're right. It's all about being respectful, and we need to take that respect that we use on the road here in South Carolina to everything else. The way that we treat people, and not, we don't know everybody's past. We don't know what they're dealing with today. We don't know what their afflictions are, what their family members are like, and all that stuff. And I think respect is definitely the key thing that we need to use. And I think the way you put that was brilliant. I do want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about a book that you wrote, or co-wrote. If you don't mind just getting into what is this book about, Arrive, Drive, and Thrive.
So Arrive, Drive, Thrive is what I'm going to call a passion project.
Okay.
We at Saterman Connect do a lot of work in the leadership program and leadership academy space. And we believe the best learning model is a little bit over a longer period of time consistently creates better results. So how many times have we gone through a full day offsite or a full day crash course on something and we remember 30%? What would it look like if we did the same 8 hours and we did 1 hour across 8 weeks and created a learning program so that the learning journey was not a transaction, it was an experience. And so Arrive, Drive, Thrive is about empowering your leadership. You arrive as an individual. How do you take care of yourself? How do you take care of your own growth? How do you take care of your own learnings? How do you then drive as a team, be that leader that you are capable of being? Leadership is learned. And so anybody can be a great leader with time and space and diligence. And then how do you elevate your leadership, elevate your impact? How do you thrive within the organizational context? So arrive as the individual, drive as a team, thrive as an organization. And this book gives a lot of roadmap, a lot of workbook experience to take those concepts and put it into reality so that you as an individual can drive your own growth, your own leadership. And that's why the tagline is empower your leadership.
So how hard was it to write the book?
If you would ask Nettie Nitzberg and Gerald Hutchinson, we all are on different sides of this. As you can tell, I'm very expressive and passionate. I love what we do. And so it was hard for each of us differently. Nettie didn't want to write a book. Nettie has such great content. She's our Chief Learning and Leadership Officer. And Gerald was my first executive coach when I was at the Macy's Leadership Academy many years ago, and we've stayed connected ever since. And so for Gerald, who has written other books, the writing was easy. The time commitment and carving out the time to be in the space was harder. And it's harder to write with 3 authors than 2 authors or 1 author, because you have to collaborate and do things that takes a bit more time. For Nettie, it was just the first time she's ever written a book. It was for me too. The hardest part for me was carving out the time to sit and write. I don't love to write. I'd rather talk. So for each of us, it was quite different. But the product is something we are all incredibly proud of. And there's more to come. So this was the first book. There's going to be a little bit more in store for 2022. So stay tuned, because definitely get the book. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at satermanconnect.com. Explore, share feedback, share reviews. We love feedback, and hang with us, because there's more to come to support your journey.
Awesome. And I'll definitely link that up in the show notes as well. And I can't wait for the next series to come out. So maybe you can come back on the show and talk about that as well. I'm always curious about how hard it was to write a book, because, I've written some nonfiction, kind of like how-to books about coding, software development, and back a long time ago. And it was so challenging, like just back and forth. I don't know. I didn't like it. I want to do more, but it's just one of those things where it's, like you said, carving out the time and just sitting down and doing it. I remember I read a book called The War of Art, and by Pressfield. And one of the things he talks about there is like, he says, I get creative at a certain time every day, and that time just happens to be between 8 and 5 when I write. It's like you have to do it. And he talks about how like sometimes you have to write 9 terrible pages to get to that one page that's a keeper. And the process is always like frustrated me, because like you said, talking's easy.
It is hard. I mean, we edited and re-edited and edited, and then I won't tell you where. It's like a Where's Waldo. You'll have to find it. But I opened the book a couple of weeks ago, and I was starting to do like a readout. We were doing a speaker series, and I came across a sentence, and I was like, oh. Like, it's just like one of those moments where you just want to fix it. And so it happens. We edited and re-edited, but that was complex. But the book was fun to write because it is a labor of love, and it is really about our journey. And we hope people will enjoy it.
Yeah, awesome. I think it's always good to have something in print that people can see that shows your work that you're doing. And then hopefully they can get more content somewhere else as well. And I love the fact that you guys put this together. And again, Josh, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I really appreciate the conversations we've had. I learned a lot about the belonging piece of it and the culture, and putting all that together, as well as some practical tips like listening with your eyes. And that's one thing that I'm definitely going to incorporate into my one-on-ones, my meetings going forward as well. So thanks so much. And if you don't mind, just tell people one more time how they can connect with you and how they can pick up a copy of the book and learn more about the stuff that you're working on.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I really appreciate meeting you, John, and having this time with you and your audience. So thank you for the time and space. Folks can find us at Saterman Connect, Saterman, connect.com. And they can reach out to us through there. There's a link to connect with us and explore more about all the work that we do in people development and diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
If you enjoyed that episode, please leave a rating and review in Apple Podcasts. I'd greatly appreciate that. And also, don't forget to check out merch. We have some t-shirts that I've designed that are on at geekleader.com. You can click on the merchandise section there and check that out. And also, don't forget about the books from our guests. So if you like this guest and other guests that have written books, please go ahead and check that out at geekleader.com. I would greatly appreciate it, and I'm sure they would too.